Hi there, welcome to this month's tutorial. Today we're going to cover seed sowing and planting seedlings. We're also going to have a look at plant selection. Now it's really important when you're choosing plants for your garden to have a think about the uses of those plants. Are they for edible gardens, for ornamental gardens? Are you creating a place to relax or need some shade in the garden? All those things you need to consider when you're choosing your plants, and they're going to help you with all those things to create a beautiful garden. There's a few things to consider when choosing plants for your garden. What are the plant characteristics, or how does a plant grow? An annual is a plant that has one growth cycle and then it dies. A perennial has many growth cycles, and a biennial has two growth cycles and then it dies off. There's also deciduous, evergreen. You also need to consider climbers, ground covers, trees or shrubs. You also need to consider the growth factors, or what do the plants need to grow. All plants need a balance of light, temperature, water, correct pH level, correct soil conditions, and also nutrients. This will vary between plants, so it's a good idea to get to know your plant's needs. It's also important to consider the season and your climate. Choose plants suitable to grow in the current growing season and also in your climatic conditions. For example, tropical, subtropical, temperate or cool. So now I'm going to show you how to sow seeds successfully at home. When seeds are germinating or sprouting, there's things that they need to actually grow. They need warmth, moisture, oxygen, and some require other factors to overcome dormancy, like chilling, burning, or soaking overnight before being sown. I'm going to show you a few easy methods now for you to be able to do this at home and sow your seeds successfully. So when you're sowing your seeds, there's many different containers you can use to do this. You can sow directly into punnets. These are 6 or 8 cell punnets. This larger one has 4 cells, so this is great for larger seeds. You can also sow seeds into these little pots for smaller or larger seeds. And I also have some little trays which I like using because it creates little greenhouses, so we have our warmth and our moisture in there for the seeds. This one comes with a larger cover and also has some air holes in the side, so this is great for sowing your seeds in and keeping all that moisture and warmth ready for your seeds to germinate. You can also make your own pots out of recycled paper, like this little pot maker. This is a great activity for kids to create your own pots. You can also use old yogurt containers, milk bottles, or many other things that can be reused to sow your seeds in. Just make sure when you're using recycled pots, you always give them a really good wash to consider hygiene, as you don't want to spread any bacteria from one plant to the next. So you can see these great ideas for sowing your seeds. Now I'm going to show you the different seeds to sow and how they grow. When you're about to sow your seeds, it's really good to group them into small, medium and large seeds. These very large seeds here, like jackfruit seeds, can be sown into large pots or directly into the ground. These Madagascar beans can also be sown directly into the ground. Being a large seed, they're best to be sown where they're going to end up growing. When you're looking at medium seeds, like these sunflower seeds or some cucumber seeds, they can be sown directly into the ground or into larger pots, probably like this larger 4-cell punnet here. And then when we're sowing finer seeds, like parsley and lettuce seeds, they're really good to go straight into these smaller punnets, and then they can be left to germinate before they go into the ground. So now I'm going to show you how to sow these seeds directly into these punnets. When you're choosing your potting medium to sow the seeds into, you can buy a bag of just seed raising mix from the store. You can actually make your own, so I'll include my recipe in the notes for you this month. And you can also use some coir blocks, which you soak in water, and that creates a potting medium great to sow the seeds into. So now I'm going to show you how to sow into these punnets right here. Okay, so now I'm going to plant these cucumber seeds in the 6-cell punnet. I'm just going to use a little stick here to make the holes for the seeds, and then I'm going to sow them directly in there. Now when you're sowing your seeds, they need to be the depth of the size of the seed. So for really small seeds, they're just underneath the soil surface, and for bigger seeds, they need to be planted deep under, but just the same width as the seed, the size of the seed. With these medium-sized seeds, we're going to put one in each cell. So I'm just going to drop those into those little holes that I've made. And then I'm going to use the stick to cover them over. So just gently tapping those just underneath, and then I'll use the stick and cover each one over. Now I'm going to sow these very small parsley seeds into the 8-cell punnet. I'm going to tip them into my hand. Being so small, I can actually just sprinkle those straight into the cell. I'll still use the stick and just break up that top part of the potting mix, and then I'm going to just sprinkle these tiny seeds into each cell. Then when they germinate, I'll choose which plants I'll use to put out into the garden. So just sprinkling those on, then I'll get a small amount of the potting mix or the seed raising mix, and I'll just sprinkle that on top and pat them down, and then they'll be ready to grow. So now I'm going to sow a sunflower seed into this little pot that I've made. I'm still going to make the hole again, but it's going to be a little bit bigger to take this bigger seed. That sunflower seed will be planted in there, and it'll grow into a beautiful sunflower ready to go out into the garden. So now I need to add some moisture to my seeds to make sure that they germinate. And when I'm watering them, I use a spray bottle like this, so I get a fine mist of water coming out. I don't want to use a watering can because we really don't want to drown these seeds. We just want to give them a light spray of water. So by spraying them in gently like this, they'll have all the moisture they need to grow. I'll do this every day, sometimes twice a day, just to make sure I keep the water moisture level in there, and they will grow beautifully. All we need to do now is label our plants and put them in the greenhouse ready to grow. Okay, I've got some labels ready for my plants. I have one for the sunflower, one for the parsley, which is this one here. There we go, and one for the cucumber. Now there's little slots at the back of these punnets so you can put your labels in, and it's not going to disturb the plants as they're growing. They can grow in my tray now and then go over to the greenhouse ready to grow. About 4 to 6 weeks they'll be ready then to plant out into the garden, which I'm going to show you in the next step, how to plant seedlings. So now I'm down in the garden ready to plant my seedlings, and it's really important to take just a few simple steps to get these new baby plants into the ground and growing beautifully. The first thing you have to do is soak them here. So you can see in my bucket, I've got them soaked in some diluted liquid fertilizer. Now I'm using my favourite Dr. Grow It All, and for the first subscribers to the club, you would have received your bottle of liquid fertilizer hopefully already. I've just got a diluted amount in here, and they're just soaking for about 15 minutes before I'm planting them. This just makes sure that all the roots are nice and damp when they're ready to go into the ground. So the next thing we need to consider is where we're going to place our seedlings. So you can see these lettuce here, they're quite small now, but they're going to grow to be about 30 centimetres round. So we need to make sure we allow enough space for all our seedlings so we don't have them overcrowding each other. We need to move back the mulch to place the area for the seedling to go into and work out the spacing there. So I'm just going to put one over there, one here, another one here, one just in there, and then I'd work out the whole area and then get my seedlings going in the soil. Now I'm going to prepare the holes for planting. Because in the past, and you would have seen this in the soil video, we prepared this garden bed with all the nutrients that it needs to improve that soil, so I actually don't need anything now to plant in. But if you find that your soil needs a little bit of improving, I'd make sure that the ingredients are in there a couple of weeks before planting. So I'm just going to make little holes just big enough for the seedlings to go into now. Make sure you're wearing gloves when you're doing this because you are dealing with manures and other things in the garden. It's great to have a little hand trowel as well to help you. Now I've made holes in there just small enough for the seedlings to fit into. You can also add some worm castings as well to these little holes just to add more nutrients, but I know that I've put everything in this soil last time I was here, so my soil's ready to go for planting right now. Okay, so now we're going to plant our seedlings in here. So I've got some nice bok choy there. The way to take them out of the punnets is gently using your thumb to press on the bottom there. There's a little drainage hole. Gently press them. Sometimes it's hard to get them out, and gently remove them that way, and then they can go straight into the hole. Try not to disturb the roots too much because we really want those plants to grow beautifully. So then I just place them in the hole. Holding up, I hold them with my left hand, and I use the soil to come around with my right hand, and I just gently pat them in that way. So I'm going to do that for all 4 of these now. Got these little baby lettuce, gently getting them out of those punnets so I don't damage those roots. That's going to go in here, and I'll just gently backfill around it. Another one in here. I'm also mixing them up because I don't want to put one type of plant in the garden bed. We're intercropping, which means I'm mixing it up here. I'm going to confuse all the pests so they won't know what they're going to eat when they come in. So now that I have all the seedlings in place, I'm just going to give them a small amount of slow release fertiliser just to give them some extra help with their growing. Now you can use organic chook manure pellets, just a few of these around each seedling, or you can actually use a small amount of blood and bone. I'd say about ½ teaspoon of the blood and bone per seedling. Now make sure these products don't go anywhere near the leaves or it can damage or burn them. So I'm just going to apply this now, and then we're ready to add some water and mulch them. So now I'm going to apply some fine organic sugarcane mulch. I've got this larger mulch in the garden bed when I prepared the soil, but when I'm planting seedlings, I really like to use this finer mulch around them. So it's just a matter of holding onto the leaves. We'll do this one here so you can see. Holding onto the leaves and placing a little bit of mulch all around there. This helps to keep the moisture in and also to stop any weeds growing. And it's like we're tucking the seedlings into bed ready to grow. So the last step we need to do is give our baby seedlings a little drink, and I'm going to add some of the Dr. Grow It All liquid fertiliser to the watering can. So I have about 10 mils per litre of water. So I've already got that pre-measured. I add that in, and then I can give these little babies a drink and get them on their way. These nutrients will soak in through the foliage and through the roots to give them a really good start while they're growing. Okay, so now the seedlings are all in. They've been mulched, they've been fed, they've been watered, and they're just going to grow beautifully. I need to come out here and keep talking to them all the time and telling them how gorgeous they're going to be. And in no time at all, we're going to be enjoying fresh produce from this garden. Now with new seedlings, make sure you give them a drink each day. You don't want them to dry out, and they're just going to grow beautifully. So you can see here I've got little mini garden beds. Now if you don't have the space at home to have big garden beds like these, you can also plant your herbs and veggies in these little containers. I've got some foam boxes which are great to use because they're recycled, they're free, they have good drainage, and they can hold quite a few little veggies and herbs. I've also got one of my favourite old baskets, or some old tins here from the kitchen that I can plant herbs in. So you can get a little creative with your container growing if you don't have the space to use big garden beds like these at home. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this month's video tutorial and learnt all about seed sowing and planting seedlings. Make sure you check out the website for this month's article. There's plenty more notes in there and information for you. We'll also have our webinar in a few weeks, so if you've got any questions for me, please ask. And also you can always email me with any extra questions you may have. So until next month, I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great time in your garden, and thanks for being here.